welcome the Minister House and thank him for taking the question in relation to the broadband provision nationwide, but also in Kerry. I suppose the Minister is well aware of the difficulties in rural areas regarding broadband. The fact that about 30% of trade is now done over the internet, and yet only 10% of Irish companies seem to have a presence and an ability to sell over the internet. A large part of this is the ineffective broadband system that we have throughout the country, but also in rural Ireland, I suppose, would be a major impediment. I suppose the focus of my concern is not only the lack of broadband, but also broadband speed. If you look at the broadband network, or the fibre optic network, in Ireland, is in one study was around less than 1%. The OECD average is 9.6%. And if you have a fibre optic network, there's potential savings in 4 main economic areas: electricity, transportation, education and health. And yet, as I have said, our fibre optic network is less than poor. And when it comes to the speed of our network in itself, of 10 megabytes, the Irish network is just over 10%, whereas in the UK it ranges in the high 30s to the mid 40s in percentage terms of their ability to get 10 megabytes or more. We have a number of proposals, and one of them, I think, which is a bit like rural electrification or the group water schemes, is that the communities themselves will be able to put in the ducting, which now accounts for 90% of the costing of putting in fibre optic, because that's the future-proof way of having a better network. While we have masts, and we all know the difficulties with installing masts in rural areas, fibre optic and having a network in there, which the communities, as the Minister knows in his own area, would be quite willing to put in, given the tools, the mechanism and the money could be put in at a reasonably inexpensive cost relative to the state putting it in the same way as the rural water schemes were put in by the communities. The ducting could be put in, and that, as I said, would account for 90% of the cost of a fibre optic network, which, if done by a private contractor or done by the state, no doubt will be done at a huge expense and enormous waste. So I'd ask the Minister maybe to outline, I suppose it's a concern to Kerry, but it's also a concern to Donegal, is really rural broadband, but broadband in general, because it is the way commerce is being done throughout the world, and increasingly so, and yet our small businesses and communities around Ireland, in Kerry, Donegal and elsewhere, just don't have access to adequate broadband, and in some cases they don't have access to broadband at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Minister to respond.
Gormagat, Cahirla. I'd like to thank the Senator for putting down the question. Broadband is a subject quite close to my heart, and you're right, the same challenges as have been faced in Donegal as there are in Kerry, so I welcome this opportunity to address the Seanad on this matter. The state only intervenes in the competitive telecommunications market where there is evidence of clear market failure, and such intervention is always subject to EU state aids approval. The National Broadband Scheme was one such intervention. To be clear on this matter, there is no question of services being withdrawn following the ending of the scheme. 3 have confirmed that following the expiry of the scheme, they will continue to provide coverage throughout National Broadband Scheme areas on a commercial basis, and that customers should see no change to the level of service or speeds provided by 3. 3 have also announced plans to extend 4G coverage across all the NBS coverage areas within the next 3 years, offering significantly faster mobile broadband speeds. I understand that former NBS customers who choose to stay with 3 can avail of the same choice of broadband plans and tariffs as those offered by 3 in non-NBS areas. Furthermore, there is now a choice of commercial operators offering broadband services over a diverse range of technology platforms throughout much of the area previously covered by the NBS. Through the National Broadband Plan, the Government aims to ensure that high-speed broadband is available to all citizens and businesses in Ireland. This has been achieved through a combination of commercial investment and the development of a state-led intervention for non-commercial areas. The commercial sector is currently investing approximately €2.5 billion in new infrastructure and services. These investments are delivering high-speed broadband to homes and businesses across Ireland for whom low speeds would have been the norm just 2 years ago. The pace of investment is encouraging and is having tangible impacts on communities across Ireland. The Government has made clear its intention to ensure that all citizens and business can access high-speed services regardless of where they are located. The National Broadband Plan therefore aims to supplement the significant commercial investments with state-led intervention in the areas where commercial investment is not forthcoming. The Department of Communication, Energy and Natural Resources is currently finalising a mapping exercise which will identify the precise areas of commercial investment and those areas that require a state-led intervention. Minister White and myself intend to publish a series of interactive maps later this year for public consultation where operators and citizens can give feedback with a view to ensuring that we correctly identify all of the areas requiring intervention. These maps will be dynamic and subject to change as future commercial investments are announced or rolled out. Publication of the maps represent an important milestone in the overall project. It will feed into a detailed implementation strategy which will be published in 2015 in tandem with the application for EU state aids approval. The detailed plan will be the subject of a full public consultation and we will move quickly thereafter into formal procurement for a winning bidder or bidders to build the network. The proposed state-led intervention will involve a substantial network build-out which will be capable of carrying even higher broadband speeds as new and more bandwidth-demanding services emerge. It will extend to locations in every county in the state identified as having no current or planned high-speed network. This challenging programme has been progressed as a priority project within the Department. The National Broadband Plan, which has been progressed in stages as outlined this evening, will deliver quality, high-speed connectivity to meet the needs of present and future generations in all parts of Ireland.
Right. Are you satisfied with that, Senator Daly? A brief supplementary to.
Yeah, thanks, and I'd like to thank the Minister for the reply. And just, I suppose, the concern really is that the customers should see no change in the level of service or speeds provided by 3, and that is actually my concern, that they actually won't see a change because many areas would report that the speeds have been reduced and that if they're to stay the same, that it actually will not help them at all. And it's 3 saying that they will not improve the level of service or speeds is the concern. And that I realise that the Government are bringing forward a plan, bringing forward proposals that in 2015 we'll see an application for EU aid, hopefully, and then it'll take 2016 before some of the regions in your constituency and in County Kerry will see funding. And then you're talking 2017 before they will actually see that in place. Whereas if we were putting in what is accounting for 90% of the cost of putting in a fibre optic network, which is the ducting system, and if communities are capable of putting in a water network in their area, they are also capable of putting in the ducting required for fibre optic, which would ensure that they would get the services a lot quicker than what has been talked about currently. And I fear that, as the Minister knows, the timelines will not be met, and that in reality we will not see areas which need broadband the most, because connectivity with the world now means that somebody who's working in the stock exchange can work from Inishowen or from Valentia Island. And the quality of life is much better there than it is living in a commute inside in London. And yet they can't do it because they don't have access to high-speed broadband, and the networks aren't providing it. I know the Government are talking about, providing it where it's not going to be put in place by commercial entities, but unfortunately, the timeline is too long. Thank you, Cahill.
Do you wish to make a brief response, Minister?
Just a brief response. Look, I think we're on the same page when when we come to the magnitude of the importance of broadband, and I mean, you did allude to the rural electrification going back to the 20s, and this is the space we're in. Broadband has to become the new electricity. We're not replacing electricity, but it's in the same parallel, as you'll appreciate. And there are demands, in rural areas. It is important that we assure the customers that have three that service is going to continue, and you acknowledge that. With my different hat on as Aristat and Gaeltacht, I've started dialogue between the Department of Communications and the Department of Gaeltacht through Uders and the Gaeltacht to talk about how we can move the thing forward. I've had discussions with your county colleague and my party colleague Brendan Griffin, and I'd be interested in hearing your own viewpoints on how we can progress that. And I know the Gaeltacht doesn't cover all of Kerry, but I think an organisation such as Uders and the Gaeltacht has a very, very important role. And if we're going to be trying to attract businesses to the industrial estates in Park No in rural parts of Ireland, I think that's an important step and an important start. And I know some companies provide their own broadband, but not every company is in a position to do that. So there are massive challenges. You've also suggested, the model where communities get involved in building their own ducting. There's a group in the northwest of Ireland called Airnacht, and they made a presentation a few months back before my own, when I was chair of the Good Friday Agreement Committee, where they alluded to, they used Sweden as an example, where that model that you've just discussed is in operation. So that has fed into the Department of Communications. Minister White and myself have already had discussions around the new national broadband plan. He's serious about it. He's committed to it, and it's important that we, make that big leap that's needed, that was made in the 20s, that's needed now. And Ascalig and Liam Moore Contasi, the big leap is needed. Because I'm certainly interested in working with you on whatever suggestions you have in Kerry. We have uniquenesses, we have strengths, we have challenges in Kerry and Donegal. We have our differences. We had them a couple of weeks ago. We'll get over that. We'll get over that.
Quite happy with the
but look, I'd be prepared to work with you because we have to feed into the conversation, and I'm interested in working with you. Thank you.